Race 14, and it's the most prestigious race here in Monte Carlo. Sebastian Ocampo on pole from Daniel Bogdasarov and Revo. Then it's Daf Sanchez, Cosmos, Oscar Folstad, and Pablo Sierra. Then it's Pierre Gasly starting 8th from Jonathan Sims and Bastien Tan. Lewis Olsen in 11th, followed by Akari Lopez, CC, Arnett Babinis Jr., Tonali Gabo, and Ukable. Leo starts 17th from Santino Milan and Enoch Kiwi. Then it's Jack Carter, Tommy, and Miguel de Souza. With both DS Automobile drivers starting on hard compound tyres, Ocampo on pole. Oh, 5 lates go on. And we go green, and that's a very, very good start from Ocampo, with the 2 drivers right behind him, both on the hards, rising up through Santa Vot, as Revo trying to get himself ahead of Daniel Bogdasarov. This is as close as a home race as Bogdasarov gets this season, and he'll make the most of the opportunity. He sends it round the outside on the championship leader, but Ocampo still about holding the race lead. Revo now making his opportunity to try and get past Bogdasarov, not quite able to do so. Yellows in the second sector, and that's for the reigning World Drivers' Champion, Oscar Folstad. Track has now been cleared, and still yellows, and that is for Jack Carter, and he's got tons of damage to his car. DS Venturi, who come from Monte Carlo and Monaco, as they now head down the hill, are on board with Babinis Jr. in the number 14, and he's doing his team not as good as they want to do. They have scored many points, many wins before, but to be down in 16th and 19th is not great. As on to lap 2 we go. Ocampo still leads the field from Bogdasarov and Revo. The top 2 separated by 2 seconds. 2, 3, 14, all on hard tyres. Carter comes in to put on softs. There was just way too much damage on that car to continue running without trying to make repairs. And if you come into the pits, you are forced to change your tyre compound, because of course there's a risk that the damage could actually be on the tyres, and the teams don't really know that because they're not allowed to put sensors on the tyres. It's to manage damage. They can, however, manage wear with sensors, as we're on board with CC. And Sims Motorsport Nissan, they have announced that they will be running an altered livery for the rest of the season past this race, but that hasn't quite released yet. Sierra currently up in 6th position, and I'm just going to point this out about Bogdasarov and Revo. While they are losing time to the man who's just set a new fastest lap, they're not actually too far away, and more pressingly, they are defending their podium positions quite well from Cosmos, the man currently in 4th position. We're on board with the Aurelio Mahindra man, and remember, he won his first race this season in London. However, we're not too sure if that's actually going to be his last race, because we don't have confirmation about whether or not Mercedes will retain the current lineup. There's a chance that they do, there's a chance that they don't. But now, as they come into the Nouvelle Chicane, and he's not really close enough to Revo to make any sort of impression. No one really close enough to anyone to make any sort of impression here. It is kind of processional, which is the worst kind of Monte Carlo Monaco Prix. As they now begin lap 4 of 19, 15 laps left to run. And the white, blue and red Andretti Honda of Sebastian Ocampo still leads the field as he now goes for his 5th race win of the season. Ocampo has been winning so much this season, but the only reason that Revo, who's only won twice compared to Ocampo's 4 times, the only reason he's still where he is in the championship is because of his consistency. That's why Revo is a championship contender, and his teammate Jack Carter's just stolen the fastest lap from Ocampo. Is that the strategy that DS Automobiles are going to play with Carter, to make sure that the Andretti man doesn't hold on to the fastest lap? And issues further back, Pierre Gasly or Oscar Folstad, either or, someone's hit the wall down at that chicane, and it's Pablo Sierra Sierra's going to have to come into the pits at the end of this lap. And for a championship contender, Monte Carlo and issues is not something that you want to see go together, because overtakes are hard to come by here. And Sierra has to come in now and pits onto soft tyres. As we now go on to lap 5 of 19, 14 laps to go. And he's going to come out behind his own teammate, so that's 20th and 21st for Nissan Nismo. Jack Carter still 5 seconds away from the Nissan man. Still no retirements from this race, which is quite good. Coming through the chicane, the Nouvelle chicane, is Sebastian Ocampo. And just pointing this out about the tyres, Revel and Bogdasarov's hards look much better than Ocampo's softs, as they now run down the hill. No one really trying to go side by side or even trying to think about making an overtake, which is completely reasonable, because this track, you gotta be as cool as a cucumber. As into the pits comes Sebastian Ocampo. So Bogdasarov takes the lead. Pablo Sierra sets a new fastest second section of anyone. And also into the pits, Bastian Tan and Lewis Olsen. Back to the side. And 13 laps to go, Ocampo comes out in 8th. So much better than where Pablo came out. There are now little gaps forming around the pack. Revo's gonna get attack mode on Bogdasarov when they come down the main straight, as they now go through the tunnel, which spits them out downhill into the Nouvelle chicane. Pablo Sierra sets the new fastest first sector of anyone, and tire issues beginning to plague drivers as Milan gets a 5-second time penalty. Further back, issues, both Nissans colliding there. Yellows in the second sector, still yellows, and a full course yellow as chaos down at the Nouvelle chicane. Akari Lopez out of the race. Ian Babinis Jr. gets a 5-second time penalty. Also out, Santino Milan. Pablo Sierra hits his teammates. Massive incident. And Sierra is out. And many of the top brass coming into the pits at the end of this lap. And both Nissans out of this race. That is going to be massive in terms of their hopes of taking a championship this season. Into the pits comes Jack Carter. Many other drivers came in. Bastian Tanning, not included it seems. Once they damaged Sebastian's car. But we go back racing. The top two of Bogdasarov and Revo, when the virtual safety car was out, they came in and they put on soft tyres. So Ocampo now leads the field from the two French team drivers of Bogdasarov and Revo, as they now head into the Nouvelle chicane. That was absolutely chaotic. Leo is the only man out there now on the hard tyres, and he's up in 5th position. So the hard tyre gambit's working as U Cable slides into the wall. He won this race last season and didn't face too many problems. But of course, some issues more easy to see than others. With 11 laps left to run, it's now time for that little chase to happen between Bogdasarov and Revo to try and chase after the race leaders. Into the pits comes many drivers who didn't come in during the virtual safety car period, and it's that going to hinder their race as well. Revo sets a new fastest first sector of anyone, 16.649, much quicker than what they were doing in the FG series, but you didn't see that, unfortunately. But now, just taking a look at McLaren, they're currently running 9th and 10th. So this is better than some races they've had this season, but also not where they'd prefer to be. As into the wall goes Cici. Just about managed to catch that. He drops to 13th position in his last race in Monaco in the Femc. As here comes Miguel de Souza. There goes Miguel de Souza past the Sims Motorsport Nissan driver. Daniel Bogdasarov sets a new fastest lap of the race, a 101.7, and he's much closer to Ocampo than he's ever been throughout the rest of this race. Tenali Gabo, his teammate, sets a new fastest second sector. as on board with Revo. And yes, the top three beginning to converge. Is this Ocampo beginning to feel few issues with his mediums as they now head into the tunnel section of the track? On board with Bogdasarov, he's 9 tenths of a second away. He would get attack mode going down the main straight into Santa Vots. And Revo would even get attack mode as well. This man Cosmos, however, would not. He's way far back. And Daniel Bogdasarov, they're currently being second with the fastest lap. Oh, Yellow's further back in the second sector, and seemingly it's for Leo, who also, like his teammate, facing problems down there. Bogdasarov getting much closer to the back of Sebastian Ocampo. 2 tenths of a second the gap. 1 tenth. He's sending it down the inside through Casino Square and into the lead of the Prix. Goes Daniel Bogdasarov, but Ocampo, he sends it down the inside, launching himself back up into the race lead. And Revo now almost looking for an opportunity. Brakes much earlier just so that he wouldn't hit the back of the Renault Edams man in front of him. But that was Bogdasarov's statement turns as his soft tyres beginning to reach a similar cliff in performance to Ocampo's mediums. The top three would likely come into the pits around the same lap now, as they now come through the swimming pool chicane, beginning to have to deal with their tyres not really giving them enough grip as they would earlier on in the race. With 8 laps now left to run, Ocampo still heads the pack from Bogdasarov and Revo. And Daniel is not gonna fight this one. He's closing in. He's closing in alright to Sebastian Ocampo right in front of him. And he's not quite close enough to try and launch one. 5 tenths either side of Bogdasarov, it seems. Currently between him and Ocampo and Revo as well. 5 tenths behind, 5 tenths in front, and it's looking as if it's going to become 7 at this point. As on board we go with Daniel Bogdasarov. He's a second back heading into the braking point. And those softs not looking too favourable at this point in time. Through the chicane comes Dav Sanchez in 5th. They down at Andretti Honda. They're currently looking at what could be one of their best finishes in the race, in the championship actually. A 1-5 as in comes Ocampo. Bogdasarov will inherit the race lead from Revo, and they decide they're going to keep the offset strategy. Revo still on the back of the Frenchman in front of him. He's still doing his best to close in. And Cosmos currently in 3rd position, not really trying to get himself involved in this fight for position. In comes Tommy on 12 of 19, 7 laps to go. And look at Bogdasarov's soft tyres. They look much worse for wear than Revo's softs. He must have been leaning on them a lot more just to try and close in on Sebastian Ocampo. So through the chicane, they both come, just about avoiding the wall, but now Cosmos doing his best to try and close the gap to the drivers in front of him. As we now watch Jonathan Sims in the number 21, Sims Motorsport Nissan, again dealing with low grip. A lot of drivers having to deal with a lack of grip because their tyres, the rubber on them, wearing down so much around these streets. As in comes Bogdasarov, and presumably, yes, Revo also into the pits. Cosmos also came in, so it's Dav Sanchez who actually leads the field. So Bogdasarov's come out ahead of Revo, who has thankfully come out ahead of Cosmos, but I think Cosmos might have actually been a little closer, and Revo has lost time to Bogdasarov. It's an Andretti Honda 1-2 today with 6 laps left to run. On board with Folstad coming out of the pits. He's going to come out in second last position, 18th. And with 6 laps to go, a third of the way, 2/3 of the way through this race, and Revo, he's still searching for his 3rd win. of the season to try and close the gap to Sebastian Ocampo. As it would stand, Ocampo and Revo would... Oh! Virtual safety car, and it's Vastientan! Vastientan is out! Tonali Gabo gets a 5-second time penalty. It's his second big one of the race. And Leo also getting a 5-second time penalty. Massive blockade coming through the Nouvelle Chicane. Miguel de Souza also out. Volstad spinning there. And he's created a bit of a blockade. And Carter, Jack Carter now out of the E-Prix. Tommy coming through. And Volstad also out of the race. So both McLarens out. Both Nissans out. One of the DS Automobiles cars out. CC and Inocui come in to the pits. Dav Sanchez presumably is just coming out of the pits now. And we're now under virtual safety car conditions. It's ending now, thankfully, but we're down to 15 runners in this race. So 5 drivers who finished will not score points, and with 5 of them having 5-second time, 3 of them having 5-second time penalties rather, I think that it's only gonna really be a fight for 10th if you're in, well, 13th and your name is Tommy. You Cable seemingly not gonna get any points at a track he does so well at with 4 laps left to run. The gap between the top 3 as Revo comes across the line is 5.6 seconds. No way we're getting a fight for the lead today. This is going to be Ocampo either romping away with the race win, as he has done several times in the season before, or a tyre issue for Ocampo, meaning that he's not going to be able to win. And he comes through the slow second sector of the track. Of course, the first part of the second sector is quite slow, but then you get this, the only part of the Monte Carlo street track that feels like a racetrack at all, the tunnel section, and then into the Nouvelle Chicane. And then you come into the final sector where can't really make overtakes, but it is a nice sector to drive. It's really, really fun to drive. At least that's what a lot of the drivers tell me. And of course, it looks like it's fun to drive as well. But Cosmos actually closing in on Revo. Is he looking for a podium today? That'd be nice to see a fight for position, but this is a race, currently with 3 laps to go. This is a race where there are 2 halves of the field. There's the top 8, well, the top 7 rather, pretty much. No, not even the top 7, it's the top 5, who are 7 seconds separated from each other. Then you've got a little bit of no man's land with Pierre Gasly. And then you've got Lewis, Olsen, Sims, CC, Gabo, and not Curie, I'd say. They're all part of their own little race. As Lewis Olsen sets a new fastest lap, 101.1. And Sebastian Ocampo coming through the chicane, close to the wall, but just about missing it. Leo comes into the pits for his second and hopefully final stop. And he got a lot of wear on that last stint. So these will be his 3rd set of tyres he'll be on. Bogdasarov and Revo's idea when it came to strategy was to go longer than the man in front of him, Sebastian Ocampo. And then, as we've currently got 2 laps to go, and then once he's come in for his second stop, they come in for their first stop, and the gap would basically be maintained. And that strategy just didn't quite work out for those 2. So now they're 2.5 seconds off the back of Sebastian Ocampo. He is absolutely dominating this race as Sanchez down the inside on Cosmos, finally an overtake in this race, and it's for 4th position. Dav Sanchez now will go off and try and chase down Revo and Bogdasarov and try and steal their podiums, as into the pits comes Tommy from 14th position. Cable will inherit 13th as the 2 Sims Motorsport men side by side. CC just about ahead. They make contact. Into the wall goes Jonathan Sims and also CC. They both hit the wall somewhat hard. They've got a little damage. Gabo's now right up to the back of them. Ocampo comes in on the penultimate lap. Bogdasarov takes the lead. And Revo is 8 tenths of a second back. They'll have to make it to the end. Into the wall. Pushed into the wall goes Jonathan Sims, and he's lost his front wing. So that's Tonali Gabo putting the race into his own hands, and Pierre Gasly, he's lost his front wing too. I don't think we got a yellow flag for him. I know we got yellows for Sims, who now dives into pit row. But now, Revo, he's going to have to try and chase after Bogdasarov. The gap is 0.5 of a second as they now head into the Nouvelle chicane. French for the new chicane. 0.3 of a second the gap. This is going to go down to the last lap, I'm sure of it, because there's little doubt in my head that they are not going to pit into the pits at the end of this race, at the end of this lap rather. This race battle is going to go to the end, but we've got yellows further back, and I think we might know who it's for. I don't know who it's for. They might come into the pits at the end of this lap. Oh, I'm not too sure, but it was in the second sector, and we're on to the final lap of this race. Bogdasarov, he won the opening round in Tokyo, Japan. Hadn't had a very good season after that. Sanchez sets a new fastest first sector as he's closing in on the two drivers in front of him. Bogdasarov, after Tokyo, of course, didn't win anything. Barely even on the podium. His teammates, it has been on the podium more than Bogdasarov has. But as he now comes to the chicane, just about misses the wall. The man behind him also missing the wall. It's a lot of wall missing as Cosmos in the barriers. Spinning goes Sebastian Ocampo for the second season in a row. Cosmos also in the barriers, but rounding Antonino's turn, it's gonna be a triumphant return to the top of the podium for Daniel Bogdasarov. He wins the Monte Carlo Prix. Revo is second, Dav Sanchez third, Sebastian Ocampo, the man who started this race on pole, will come home to finish fourth, and I believe lose the lead of the championship as well. Cosmos comes down Antonino's turn in fifth. Lewis Olsen, brilliant stuff from the Dragon Renault man to come home and finish sixth. Then it's Pierre Gasly, CC, Anot Kiwi, and Tonali Gabo. Gasly setting a 59.766 at the end of this race. My oh my, what a finish. Bogdasarov, most people would have had as Sims steals the fastest lap at 59.516. Most people would have had Ocampo winning this, but no, it was the man who started second and on strategy too. This is the podium. Daniel Bogdasarov of France wins the Monte Carlo Prix from Revo and Dav Sanchez. A brilliant result for the Frenchman. In fourth position was Sebastian Ocampo, then it's Cosmos, Lewis Olsen, Pierre Gasly, CC in 8th, Anot Kiwi 9th, and UK Ball finished 10th. Then it's Tonali Gabo, Babinus Jr., Sims, Tommy, and Leo, with your non-finishers being Oscar Folstad, Vastian Tan, Miguel de Souza, Jack Carter, Akari Lopez, and the two Nissan Nismos of Pablo Sierra and Santino Milan. In the driver's standings, by a single point, Sebastian Ocampo leads the way from Revo, and then 50 points back you'll find Daniel Bogdasarov tied with Pablo Sierra. Then it's Oscar Folstad 1 point ahead of UK Ball, who's 1 point ahead of Jonathan Sims, who's 2 points ahead of CC. Following them 10 points back is Akari Lopez. Then it's Lewis Olsen, 1 point behind him is Anot Kiwi. Then it's a tie for 12th between Tonali Gabo and Leo. Then it's Cosmos, 1 point ahead of Santino Milan. Then it's Dav Sanchez, 2 points ahead of Babinus Jr., 1 point ahead of Miguel de Souza, 2 points ahead of Jack Carter, a further 4 points ahead of Pierre Gasly, who's 2 points ahead of Vastian Tan and 6 points ahead of Tommy. That's a lot of points ahead. In the constructors standings, heading into the next round of the championship, Andretti Honda lead the way, 6 points ahead of DS Automobiles. Then it's Renault Edams, Nissan Nismo tied with Sims Motorsport Nissan. Then it's Aurelio Pinnacle, Braun Honda GP, DS McLaren TGR, Aurelio Mahindra, Dragon Renault, and DS Venturi Formula E team. We'll see you guys next time then when the Formula E Monopoly Championship returns.